The day has finally come. Destiny 2 is now on PC. This being said, this may be your first exposure to the Destiny universe. Since Destiny 2 launched nearly a month ago on console, I have a couple hundred hours of experience under my belt that I hope to pass on to you guys. These are tips that I wish somebody told me before I started playing Destiny 2, but before I get into the tips, I want to leave you guys with one giant piece of advice. Light level does not matter much. Loot does not matter much. Have fun. That is your primary reason for playing video games. Have fun. For those that have no idea what I'm talking about, light level is a factor in game that determines how powerful you are, and it caps out at 305. Though people think it's necessary to get all the way to 305, even though you only need 280 to access endgame activities. And there isn't much of a difference in power from 280 to 305. It's almost not noticeable at all. The second thing you'll find Destiny 2 players doing is putting too much emphasis on obtaining a very specific weapon. What you'll find is that this game is very balanced. Almost every single weapon is viable in PvP. But again, this ties into my advice. Have fun. Do not lose sight of having fun. Don't jump in the Crucible because you want to have a chance at getting a gun. Jump in the Crucible because you find it fun. The same goes for strikes, the same goes for playing the story, the same goes for doing the raids. Don't do these activities because you want loot, do them because you find them fun. The loot you get from the raid is not superior in PvP. The loot you get from Trials of Osiris, which is endgame PvP, is not superior to any other loot that you can get anywhere else. So this being said, if the game loses its sense of fun, just take a break. You don't have to play this game. You can move on to another game and then come back. Well, that does it for my advice. Without further ado, let's move on to the tips. Tip number 1. Do not trust descriptions. Do not trust stat bars. Don't trust the HUD. Test everything to make sure you know what it is. This will make a lot more sense as I continue to explain this tip, so I'm going to do just that. Look at this sniper rifle in the background. Now I'm going to hit pause in a second, and you're going to see that it says short zoom and medium zoom. See? Short zoom, medium zoom. I switched the short zoom from a medium zoom, and guess what? The zoom factor is exactly the same. Although it says it is a medium or a short zoom, it is in fact a long zoom. This isn't just in perk descriptions, this is also in stat bars. Take the popular Uriel's Gift auto rifle compared to the number. Although the Uriel's Gift shows that it has more range, it actually drops off sooner than the number, meaning that the number has more range than the Uriel's Gift, even though the range values are different. This is actually such a recurring theme in Destiny that I occasionally put together private lobbies, because private matches do not exist, where I get 8 friends together and we all join a lobby with the intent of just testing out weapons to see if they do what they say they do. And spoiler alert, most of the time they don't. Like the perk Armor Piercing, it says it does extra damage to shields, not in PvP. Another example of not trusting the description is precision shotguns. Now most legendary precision shotguns shoot a slug, but the uncommon and rare variants, that is green and blue shotguns, they shoot pellets. Normally this wouldn't be a big issue, but the problem is the green and blue shotguns still retain the very high impact and range stats of the slug shotguns, except for the fact that they shoot pellets. So you don't have to be accurate at all, and they still hold the title of the longest range shotgun in the game. Again, misinformation isn't limited to just weapons. If you take a look at the Gunslinger skill tree subclass, you'll find a perk at the top right called 6-shooter. Do not level this perk. Now what it does is it turns your Golden Gun Super into a 6-shooter. In PvP, you would think this is amazing, but it actually reduces the entire timer of the super to only a couple seconds, whereas if you don't level the perk, you get 3 very powerful shots that last a lot longer. There are a couple other similar cases, like the Night Stalker. If you wanted to use an exotic piece of armor called the Orpheus Rig, you might want to not level this quiver, and on the Voidwalker, which is a warlock, you might not want to level the Slova Bomb. It's really your own choice with the Slova Bomb or the Mobius Quiver, but I'm gonna say don't level 6-shooter on the Golden Gun. There are a lot of videos that go really in depth as to why not to do this. It's just gonna save me 10 minutes of explaining. For the final part of this tip, do not trust the Destiny 2 client itself. If you use something like OBS to record, Discord, or any other application that injects a little bit of code into the Destiny 2 client, you could actually get banned for cheating. So be very careful with what side peripheral programs you use. Tip number 2. Set key bindings early. For some of you, this may be the first time you touch mouse and keyboard, and you want to make a keybind setup that meets all your future needs, not just what feels comfortable right now, today. I'm going to go ahead and leave my keybind information in the background, but I'll quickly talk about it just to give you an idea of why I selected certain things. For one, my desk space is limited, so I use something called an orb weaver, a Razer orb weaver. It's like if you cut a keyboard in half and just take the left half, it leaves a little bit more space on your desk. Why might you need more space? Because a large mouse mat is better than a small mouse mat. Now you don't have to use a Razer orb weaver, you could use any keyboard, but you might want to tilt the keyboard a little bit sideways so that you could have more room for a large mouse mat. The reason that a small mouse mat is bad is because think about it, if the mouse mat is small, you're only using your wrists to aim. If the mouse mat is large, you get to use your whole arm in conjunction with your wrist to make more precise movements. In the theme of wanting precision, you should keep your DPI and in-game sensitivity low. The lower the sensitivity, the more precise you can be, but you might be slower on 180 turns. So the idea is to add more mouse mat space. If you have a larger mouse mat, that means you could use more of your arm to 180 turn almost instantly. As for more specifics on my keybinds, I can make a separate video going into it, but I'll just talk about the basics. First and foremost, the interact key is mapped to my mouse. I have a gaming mouse, so I have two side buttons and a DPI switch on it, as well as a scroll wheel, but I'll get more into the scroll wheel later. The interact key is very important, because if a teammate dies in PvP, I have to revive them, and you can revive them using the interact key, that is normally mapped to E. Now you can see the issue. If it's mapped to E, how do I strafe to the right? You can't. You can also see that my crouch is bottom left, my sprint is Q, and my reload is R. With these three, you can have all your fingers open to reload cancel, which only saves you a little bit of time when readying your gun, but I mean, any little time gained is still an advantage. Speaking of advantages, I base most of my playstyle around a power weapon called a sword. Swords are a power weapon that kick your view into third person, the only power weapon to do that. So think about the advantage of being able to pick third person at any point in the match. If you use an emote, it does kick you into third person, but you're limited. You have to stand still when using an emote. If you pull a sword out, you can move around, you can jump, you can do whatever. You could even swipe to redirect yourself back into cover if you overextend. Again, I can save sword hilting for another video. I can even link my Destiny 1 sword hilt guide. But for now, I base my entire keybind setup on the fact that I will always have a sword and I will always use it to its full potential. The last thing I'll mention on this tip is the fact that I bind my weapons to the scroll wheel. I scroll up for a kinetic, I scroll down for an energy, and I click for a power/sword hilt. The advantage of this is obvious because it lets you utilize your entire strafe and not just one or two directions. Tip number 3. Public events are the best. In a normal playthrough of Destiny, you might make it to level 20 by the time you finish the story. In a speed run, you'll probably end at 18. But most of the time, whenever you play a mission, the enemies are the same level or higher level than you. This means they'll inflict a lot of damage on you, and you can't just run past and tank them. After you finish the story, you'll find that the fastest way to get your power level up is to do heroic events. But I suggest something even better. Forget going through the story first time through, just do public events until level 20. More specifically, if you have friends, do public events until about level 14, 15, 16, 17, and then run through the story with your friends. By the time you finish, you'll be level 20, and you'll be collecting gear that'll put you way past the normal power level. You can also be proactive and save any nice low-level gear to transfer to your other brand new characters so that they have an easier time leveling up and doing public events. Ignore any background noise, but I'm going to quickly explain why this is my favorite method and how to do it. So here's what you do. You go onto the second planet, Titan, and you're going to farm public heroic events. Now load up a zone, travel to it, and if you don't see any friends, any blueberries, any extra teammates around, reload the area until you see teammates. Once you see teammates, rally the flag, get ready to do your public event, and do it. If you happen to be by yourself and never have any luck of finding teammates, I suggest not triggering the heroic event. Don't trigger the heroic event, just do a regular one. And then as soon as you finish, instantly reload, travel to the exact same area you just were, and go to the public event area again. Now do it again, and if you have to do it without triggering the heroic, do it again. Keep doing it until you can't do it anymore, and then travel to the opposite area of Titan, and do it again. Rinse and repeat. So here's what you do. You look for teammates. If you don't find teammates, do it solo. Reload. Finish another public event. Reload. Finish another public event. Reload. Oh no, there's no more public events to do in the same area. Go to the opposite side and wait patiently. Rinse and repeat. Now, the reason that this is my favorite method is because you could do something else on the side. Let that be homework, let that be talking to your GF, or playing RuneScape. Seriously though, if you want to achieve the max power level in as little effort as possible, this is the way to do it. Farm public events. What farming public events will get you is tokens, and you can turn these tokens into any planetary vendor. For this, you'll turn these Titan tokens into Sloan, and she'll give you gear. But don't turn them in until you're at a very, very high power level. I suggest 260 plus. In addition, you should also save any gunsmith materials you get. If you delete a weapon or an armor piece or something like that, you get gunsmith materials, and you turn those into the gunsmith at the tower or the farm, and he'll give you gear. However, I say save these. Save these for when you're well beyond 260 light. Once you're at 280 light, the gunsmith opens up the ability to purchase legendary mods, and these will easily bump your light up. I'm sure there's plenty of guides in them. I'll link another one in the description. Thank you, Dado. Tip number 4. Collect blues and greens. Here is a short list of blue and green weapons that you want to keep along your journey to max light. Hand in Hand, Fuss Mark 21, Azimuth Zoo, Cuboid Auto Rifle, Armillary, Sandwasp, Stampede, any Omelon sidearm, and the Sondok C, and any sniper that you happen to like the scope of. In no specific order, here is the Cuboid. That is a kinetic auto rifle that is in the 450 RPM, which is a very, very competitive archetype for PvP. Has very good perks, a very clear scope, definitely worth keeping. The Armillary Scout Rifle has high caliber rounds and quick draw. Quick draw maxes the handling. Very, very unique scout. The Azimuth Zoo is a high impact hand cannon with kill clip, the only one of its kind. Now onto the energy weapons. The Sandwasp is one of the few auto rifles in this archetype that has high caliber rounds, but even without it, it's still a very solid auto rifle. Spoiler alert, high cals don't really do much on console. You should also keep an eye out for any Omelon sidearm that you happen to find. It could be green, it could be blue, whatever, just get your hands on it. This is the Fuss Stark Mark 21, one of the highest impact shotguns in the game. I mentioned this earlier. It is an absolute monster and is only bested by the Hand in Hand, which is a green. The Stampede grenade launcher is a sticky grenade launcher with quick draw, just to give you extra utility. Now I forgot to mention the Sondok C, which you can get from the Exodus Siege adventure on Nessus, that's the 3rd planet. It is a kinetic submachine gun that is best in class because it has the perk kill clip, which reduces the time to kill. Whenever you get a kill, then reload the gun. Now the Sondok C does have a legendary counterpart called the Antiope D, but it is very, very difficult to get from what I hear, so just use the blue version, there's not much of a difference. Finally, there are sniper rifles that are blue and green, and they have their gun model based on old Destiny 1 snipers, and the scopes on them are sometimes more preferable to certain people. So if you're one of these people who really enjoy these scopes, keep the sniper. Tip number 5. Get Destiny Item Manager. The other alternative is Ishtar Commander, but they both essentially do the same thing. Now the vault in Destiny 2 is a disorganized mess. What Item Manager does is it lets you transfer gear from one character to the other, from a character to your vault, from your vault to your character. But it does it even better. It alphabetizes it or organizes it in almost any way you could think possible. It saves so much time. You could create loadouts. Really, the possibilities are endless with this thing. Just get it. Don't even wait for me to tell you why, just get it. And that concludes this video. Wow, only 13 minutes, that's not so bad. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this video or think it'll be helpful to one of your friends, please share the video. It helps a lot. Anyhow, I'm Cammy, and I'll see you later. You know, all them young hunters. We don't really have much old content. We got a whole lot of new content, though. If Telesto don't come back, I'll shoot you. Hey! Frame rate, tick rate, sniping it up with the ice break. Searching for a match. ... Ain't no exclusive on Xbox.